Welcome to Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis. Today, I'm going to be talking about improvements in products in tennis over the past 30 plus years. Stay tuned. All right, so guys, 32 years ago, when I first started working at a tennis shop, these things were basically what I did and what I sold on a daily basis. Shoes. Okay, my first pair of shoes back then that were real tennis shoes, okay, were the Nike Air trainers that John McEnroe wore. Do you remember those? They were 3/4 inch high with that strap in the front. It was kind of a gray, white, had a little green trim, had that cool strap in the front of the shoe, and it was kind of slightly a high top mid cut. That was my first, let's say, real tennis shoe. That was not really even a tennis shoe, but I want to say that was the evolution of better tennis shoes. Prior to that, it was Stan Smith, K-Swiss, SI-18s. Okay, that's a pretty good shoe. But the shoes that were on the market prior to, let's say, those two shoes, they weren't very good. I mean, Wilson Pro Staffs, I call it Woolworth shoes. We had the Adidas Stan Smiths. It was leather and it was a shoe and it was white. But it really didn't do a whole lot for you. We had Rod Lavers, right? I mean, back then, technology wasn't wonderful. Nobody gave it a lot of thought. So, it was basically rubber and leather with some laces that you strapped on your feet, right? My feet hurt for the first 3 weeks before I kind of broke them in. Pinky toe, right? Is jacked up till today because of those shoes. But those Air Trainer Max or Air Max trainers were the first shoe that fit my feet. And that was, I feel like, the revolution or evolution of a true tennis shoe. Even though that really wasn't meant for tennis, I think. But Johnny Mac put them on, and then later on Agassi wore them too. So, but today, fast forward to 30 years later, right? Shoes have come a very, very long way. People actually care about how they fit, how their structure is, how heavy they are. You compare a Pro Staff shoe to, let's say, this Rush Pro 3.0, right? There's actually a shape to this shoe. Look at that. They call it the last, right? Whereas before it was, there was nothing here. It just kind of came straight across and straight down like this. And it was pretty much leather on the top, as they all were. Rubber on the bottom, which was real stiff. At least this has some kind of a bend to it, right? So this is softer on the top, right? Which is not going to kill my pinky toe. Because I think the name of the game today is now comfort. These are way, way more comfortable since 32 years ago, right? Like you didn't have to, but I didn't really hear anybody complain back then. So I don't know, maybe people's feet got fatter in the last 30 years. But, excuse me, but they are definitely more comfortable. They have the person in mind. They have performance in mind. It's gotten way, way better in 30 years. So we really shouldn't complain about shoes, even though I do all the time. Look at something like this. This is kind of like the modern day Air Force trainer, if you think about it, right? What's the technology? Well, tongueless, right? You slip right in and you're nice and locked in, kind of like that Air Force trainer, right? Got a nice stiff sole that's semi-durable, right? But pretty super comfortable, right? I feel like this is Air Force trainer, fast forwarded 33 years. High performance tennis shoe, made for tennis, right? So tennis shoes have come a very, very long way. So that's one evolution that I am super grateful for. The next thing, strings. When I started stringing rackets 32 years ago, I would say 80 to 90% of all strings was print synthetic gut. I don't even have print synthetic gut now. But everybody makes a form of synthetic gut, which comes from that mold or that kind of a structure material, which is a nylon-based synthetic gut, right? Just like that. It's basically a thick core with one wrap around. And everybody seemed to use it because it was easy, it was cheap, fast to string. I mean, kind of the industry standard. That was 32 years ago, right? Either I strung with this, or I strung with gut, or sometimes I would do Pro Blend. And there were some other strings on the market. I don't know, I think Sensation just started a little bit after that, and then NXT after that. So, but the evolution of strings also has come a very, very long way. We have so many multi-filaments now. I mean, look at these NXTs, right? We got the regular NXT Comfort, which is, I believe, the original NXT. I know this is the original NXT, right? With the multi-filaments, right? Gut-like feel. You know, I'm not a big fan, but, you know, the original one was way, way better. The NXT Power, right, which used to be the NXT Tour, little more feel, right, little more power, little more, I don't want to say control, but, you know, good, little bit more all-around string. And then you have other options now. The Comfort and Control, which comes from this NXT Control now. This is a hybrid in itself, so it's the fibers are half nylon and half polyester, kind of woven together. So option for a little more durability. And the Duramax from NXT, so this is kind of the ultimate in durability within this line. So they have the regular NXT Comfort and all the way to this Duramax, which is the most durable of the NXT line. Okay, so there's so many options within even one line of synthetics now that you can choose from. And then the evolution, there was no such thing when I first started stringing as polyester strings. Like, they didn't exist. It didn't come out until 95, which, man, that was a while ago, when I started stringing at a tournament and I started seeing this wire stuff that reminded me of like fish line or weed whacker, and I was like, what the heck is this stuff, right? And because it was a pain in the ass to string. That was the advent of polyester, right? Big Banger Original. There was no such thing as polyester back then. I mean, even on the Pro Tour, was a lot of gut. So there are so many options of polyester now. This was, I want to say, one of the beginners or the trailblazers of polyester. And then they started adding more to the line. ALU, right? Probably the most popular string to date in terms of polyesters. There's a whole family of these now. You got different gauges. You got textured ones, the rough. You got the shape ones, right? The spin, which is the shape one, right? And then you got all the different thinness and gauges within just the ALU line. So there's so many options. And then you have different companies now, like Solinco, coming out with strings, right? They came out with a bang with Torbite, right? And then now they've added Hyper G, which is super popular. I think number 5 string in the nation now. Number 5 best-selling string in the nation now. And then my favorite, Confidential, right? None of these existed. This company is pretty pretty brand new. I want to say 10 years or less. So this didn't exist 30 years ago. And I believe these, and I know these are, improvements to the game. Like it's crazy how we hit the ball today versus 32 years ago. It's crazy. And a lot of it has to do with technology. Lastly, speaking of technology, although these Pro Staffs really hasn't changed a whole lot, except for maybe a little bit in the head size and the weight. I used to sell a ton of those Pro Staff 85s, the Pete Sampras, Stefan Edberg rackets. So rackets have come bigger, right? Which makes the game a little easier for pretty much everybody, right? I mean, even Fed himself went to a 97, right? His own signature racket. And he realizes the benefit of that. And we all gain from that benefit too. When we used to hit with an 85, it was a much slower game, right? Albeit, the pros make it look so easy. But for us, it's a slower, harder game. Making it a little bigger, a little wider, a little lighter, all contributes to how we play the game and how easy it is, or how easy for it to make us play the game better, right? So again, the options are definitely there. Back then, it was just 85 square inch Pro Staff, right? They made a 110. I hardly sold that 110. And I believe I've even seen a 125 in that racket when they went crazy with that after a little while. But that 85 was what was sold, and a lot of those. That and the Prince Graphite 90. But there weren't that many options back then, but now there are a ton of options now. I mean, we have the Pro Staff regular here. We have the RF here. They even make a light one now. For those of you who have to have a Pro Staff and maybe a little younger, or perhaps can't wield a heavier racket, they make a light version for you now. Well, what else is there in rackets? Well, hey, there's only 3 rackets in that Pro Staff line. But there are, I'm going to go up to the wall here. How many blades are there, right? You got your blade 98, 16, 19, 18, 20. You got your 100L. They came out with those pro versions, which is like pro stock in wilson.com, right? They have the 104 Serena. They have the Serena Autograph Edition, right? So how many blades are there now? Man, is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 9? There's a lot of blades out there now. That didn't exist back in the day. I mean, how many strikes are there now? 5, 6, 7, right? How many pure drives out there now, right? We got a 107 even in that. So there are so many options compared to what was, what was offered 32 years ago when I first started in this industry. So I feel that we are in kind of the golden age of tennis products, because everything these guys are making have been well thought out, well made from what I can see. I mean, every racket I've tested, I don't hate. I mean, some rackets I used to test, I'll be like, oh, this is garbage. But I mean, I don't hate them. I like most of them, if not all of them, because technology is there. They've hired engineers, people who professionally produce tennis rackets. So, hey, we're in the golden age of tennis, guys, in terms of products. So enjoy it and test out a bunch of stuff. But shoes are, definitely come a long way. Strings, man, there's so many strings on the market now. So try some. Rackets, hey, you guys know, if you're a racket junkie like me, you're trying out a lot of rackets right now, and it's hard to choose, right? So that's my 30 years from 32 years ago to now. Let me know what you think and how rackets, shoes, and strings have changed in your world. Thank you for watching Tennis Spin, where we put our spin on your tennis.